Hey, honey, I just resent you a link.
Okay, new link. Okay,
Uh
bye.
huh. Okay, bye bye. Hey, everybody. I'm so sorry. I had it going and then I turned it off inadvertently. So I've just resent links to everybody. And so we are good. We'll be up in a hot second. Okay. So we will be up shortly. Hey, Andre, how you doing? Andre, please give me my key so I can let people in. Oh, gosh. Okay. All right. So I'm waiting for everybody to come back in. Okay. Okay. Let me see. Let me make sure you got the link. Okay. Chapeau? Chapeau?
I'm just watching from behind, Santita. I'm just waiting for everybody to come up so I can help you.
Okay. I appreciate it. I'm sorry. I actually turned it off. Can you believe it? You want to reach? I reached out to Jonathan, to the congressman, to let him know that I had sent him another. Maybe I should send him this link by text.
Yes.
Let me send that to him by text.
Did you send it to Jonah and Linda?
Uh huh. But you know what? Let's Can you send it to them? Just
Yes.
to be sure. Okay. He's gonna call back. Oh, he's gonna call back at 9. We'll be off by then. That's all right. No worries. Well, no. Okay. No. All right. All right. No, I'm gonna let him. Okay. 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 All right, everybody. We'll be up in a hot second. We are going to have the congressman on, but he'll be on at the end. And so we're going to just get things going. So stand by, everybody. Andre and Carol. Boy, my procedure is it's a whole lot. Ugh. But thankfully, Chaparral came on this morning, and Chaparral's got kids. So she is like always juggling a lot, just trying to help me to keep things going. But wouldn't be able to do it without her. So, oh, but Chaparral, I created a link. Am I on the wrong link, Chaparral? Okay, I've got Jonah over here. Okay, Jonah.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, the congressman will be on at the top of the hour. So in about 40 minutes.
Okay. I will have to have hopped off by then,
Oh, I'm
unfortunately.
so sorry about that, but we're gonna work this out.
Okay.
And because as you
The
could,
link you just texted me is a different one than the one that we're on.
oh, it's a different one than the one that we're on.
It
Okay,
is.
then, Chaparral.
It was the
Chaparral.
original one that you emailed, and then no one was in there, so you
Oh,
emailed me a
okay.
second one just now, and I switched to this one.
Okay. The one I just sent you is the one that you're using, right?
the one that was just sent to my email is the one that I'm using.
Okay,
But
okay,
there
that's
was
it.
one that you texted me that was different, but that
Oh.
one that you texted me is the same one as the one that you just tried to switch to earlier, and when I went in there, no one was in there.
Okay. Let me see. Chaparral? Okay, let me just make sure that I'm getting this right.
I'm here, Santita. Just send me the
Okay.
emails and I'll send them out.
Okay, no, if you would whatever can you text her whatever, send me the text, Jonah, of which email I sent of the StreamYard link I sent you that you're on now.
Okay, sounds good. I'll do that
Okay.
right now. Also, you're live, it says.
Oh yeah, I am.
Again. Okay.
Yeah. No, we're on.
Okay.
Okay, and Chaparral, this is the one you can send out. You send it to Linda by text and by email.
Okay, I need the email address and then I'll send it.
Okay. Let me see.
Okay, I just texted you, Santita, the one that we're on right now.
Okay, great. And let me do Chaparral,
Yes.
I'm sending you a screenshot of the emails, okay?
Okay, got it. I'm going to drop off, but I'll send everything for you.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm going to text it to you right now. A screenshot of all the emails that these need to go to, but I'm going to go on and get started with
Jonah. Okay, no problem. I got it.
And let me send you the link that Jonah is on.
I got it. So we're all in the same one. So don't worry about sending the link. I just
Okay.
need the emails.
Okay, and just but also text us to the congressman as well.
Absolutely.
Okay, you have that number, yes?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I gave you all their email addresses.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, so everybody, we're going to go on and get started. I apologize for this was my mistake. I had started because I wanted to make sure that I could catch the congressman because I knew he was busy this morning. And then what did I do? As soon as he comes on, I turn it off. This is what happens. But what a day, what a moment that we are in. And so let's get right to it. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show, the second hour of the Santita Jackson Show. It is a joy to be with you today here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. And we're streaming on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe to the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. And please go to the Santita Jackson and Friends page, the Santita Jackson and Friends page on Facebook. I want you to be my friend. That is where I can accept new friendships, everybody. And everybody, please go to Twitter. At Santita J is where I'm streaming, and the Santita J Show. I'm streaming there as well. So let's talk about every day it's something new. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu spoke before Congress yesterday. And for the first time, really, maybe in our history since the founding of Israel, you had a substantial number of members of Congress who boycotted his speech because of what's happening in Gaza and the West Bank. So let's talk about it because you had all kinds of demonstrations, people demonstrating their points of view. So let's talk about this. What did you think about it? Never seen anything quite like it. Andre, good morning. Carol, good morning. Good morning. And I wish I understood the procedure for my shows too, my sister. And Dave Dowling and Robert, shalom. And Kenneth, everybody like and share. Bernadette, how you doing, sweetie? Like and share, like and share, like and share, like and share. You said, did Kennedy and West pull out? If not, this will be no. You know what? They shouldn't pull out. I think they should stay in. We can't reduce people's options. Did you know that yesterday the DNC really passed new rules that would disallow anyone really from running against Vice President Harris if they don't file, I think, by Friday? I mean, come on. Now, either way, you can't say you're saving democracy while you're subverting it. It's not. Nobody said it was going to be easy. But we already have people we didn't vote for. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure the 86% of these delegates who are pledged to Biden might be feeling some kind of way, but no one's going to talk about that. And if you do, you're going to be shut down. You got to stop doing that, everybody. So let's get right to it. One of my favorite people, young organizer from If Not Now. Indeed, he's just organizing on not just in this particular space, as we talk about the Middle East, as we talk about Israel and Gaza and the West Bank. He is really organizing, really trying to give us a more just society and a more peaceful world. And I love that about you. But let's get right to it. Let's get to Prime Minister Netanyahu's speech. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. What happened yesterday? Joe Carson, and really the events surrounding it, because it wasn't just there weren't just protests yesterday. There were protests the day before.
Yeah, I'd like to start by highlighting that because as anyone who watched Prime Minister Netanyahu's speech knows, there was a whole lot of dishonesty, a whole lot of lack of empathy and humanity for Palestinians, and this is not somebody. This is somebody that has where the prosecutor of the International Criminal Court has requested an arrest warrant for war crimes, including the crime of extermination for Benjamin Netanyahu. So this is not somebody that I think at this moment is deserving of the honor of speaking before a joint session of the United States Congress. And I'm fortunate enough to be part of a Jewish community that understands that. And I want to highlight in particular the day before the speech on Tuesday. About 500 Jews and allies wore matching red T-shirts, and occupied one of the Cannon office building, which is adjacent to the Capitol building, big rotunda atrium, and sang songs and chanted and sat down and practiced nonviolent civil disobedience in the tradition of our country, in the tradition of the civil rights movement and all of our ancestors before us, and said that Netanyahu may want to portray his genocidal actions as in support of the Jewish people, but we say, no, not in our name. That has nothing to do with the values that we were raised with. In fact, it's a desecration of them. And the United States should not be platforming this man at this moment with 40,000 Palestinians dead, ongoing famine and starvation. And just now we're hearing the reemergence of the polio virus, believe it or not, in Gaza. It's unconscionable what's happening to the Palestinians, and that Prime Minister Netanyahu would be invited. And thankfully, these 500 Jews knew that. They showed up, they protested, and they said, not in our name, and that we need to stop sending weapons, bombs that are being used to kill children to Israel, and we need to institute an immediate arms embargo on the state of Israel. And that was the message of that protest, and it ended in several arrests and folks spending some time getting booked in jail. As far as I know, thankfully, no one was hurt. But a real display of bravery, and in stark contrast to the speech that we saw from Benjamin Netanyahu yesterday, which, as I said, was full of hate and falsehoods and a vision of Jewish safety that is at the expense of others, that relies on allying itself with forces that ultimately have disposed of us time and time again during history, allying us with forces of the state and global imperialism, and trying to assimilate Jews into a system of power, when what we need to be doing is showing solidarity with all other groups that are threatened by white supremacy and racism. And that is the way that we will achieve safety. Benjamin Netanyahu doesn't understand that. Benjamin Netanyahu, in fact, would rather preserve his own power, run out the clock so that he doesn't end up in prison for his numerous corruption charges, not to mention his war crime charges that are pending. uh, and he's willing to sacrifice maybe an unlimited number of Palestinian lives in service of that goal.
Well, what did you make of the speech yesterday? Just in and of itself.
Well, certainly, I was not surprised by the content of the speech. I think it's par for the course for Benjamin Netanyahu. This is, as we said, a war criminal. The ICC prosecutor is seeking an arrest warrant for him as we speak. And we saw lies about what's going on in Gaza, lies such as that the only reason that aid isn't getting into Gaza is because Hamas is stealing it, which, of course, we know maybe happens on some occasions, but independent human rights monitors and some of the United States government's own assessments have determined that is really unlikely to be the case. And famine is widespread in Gaza. So that's a really awful lie to be telling. Lies about the lengths that Israel goes to to protect civilians, saying that no army has ever gone as far as the state of Israel in taking measures to protect civilians, which is just Orwellian, to be frank. And so anyone that has eyes and anyone that has been watching videos from Gaza over the last 9 months has no reason to take what Prime Minister Netanyahu is saying seriously. So in that sense, it was a disgrace, but I'm also grateful at the same time for the movement that is beginning to push back on him. I really believe that the folks that have been going out in the street for all of these months and forcing this to be an issue that is at the forefront of the American political conversation had a direct effect on the 100 plus Democrats who boycotted the speech. More than that, who like Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, who was in the speech but did a nonviolent silent protest holding up a sign referring to Netanyahu as a war criminal, and folks like your brother who wanted to hear the speech but who have voted consistently against military aid to Israel.
Well, and who refused to shake his hand.
Absolutely. So that all of that represents a sea change in the Democratic Party. And I don't think politicians are dumb. I think politicians have seen what's been going on in Israel and Gaza for a long time. But there's been a fear based on groups like AIPAC that if you speak out, you're going to see a really intense primary challenge. But the grassroots movement has changed that calculus. The grassroots, the members of Congress see people in the streets and they say, actually, there's going to be a cost for me showing up, and it's better for me to stay back. It's actually a calculation that the movement has given members of Congress space to not give someone like Netanyahu the time of day. And I think that is a victory, regardless of whatever drivel he wants to put out there from the lectern of the United States Congress.
Well, I mean, but what, I have to tell you, we've been joined by Ariel Gold, my dear sister friend. You're our nephew, and we're your aunties. You go. I said, hey, we got to come out the African tradition. This is what we do. But but I'm so proud of. I mean, it's one of the profound joys of this incredible moment for me has been getting to know Jonah and Aaron Niederman and so many of these young people who give me so much hope. Because when I see them, I mean, Jonah, you really you squeezed my heart some months ago. We were talking about the kind of world that we've got, and some of the compromises that people make. And as you get older, you were like, wait. The world that you all have given me, I don't want it, and I'm not going to have it. I mean, God bless you. I mean, he was so passionate, it almost brought tears to my eyes. Because I said, well, you know what? It's all good. I mean, Ariel, when we get out of here, they got this. You're going to push this along. But I have to ask Jonah, what Ariel and I are your elders. You have to understand the world that we grew up in. To see this moment, Ariel, is just incredible. I mean, we never would have thought we didn't see this coming. We've been pushing the ball along because before you were born, you couldn't even mention Palestinian in public discourse. There was a no talk policy. So when Reverend Jackson ran for president, fighting for their rights, tying it to Israeli security, he was the outcast. And these same groups really tried to destroy his campaign. I mean, before, and actually this happened before he ran for president. No harm, no foul, because my father said, when you know better, you do better. Because my father's not Mr. McGrudgeful. He does not hold grudges. He's always looking for a way for us. Is there a way for us to work this out? You know that, Ariel. You know that about him. People think that he's kind of a little different, like half nuts. Because they're like, he does not hold any grudges, and you shouldn't. But what is the sea change that happened? What is it that you've seen that we missed, Jonah?
Yeah, I mean, well, I'm happy. First of all, I'm happy that whatever conversation you're referring to, which could have been many of the sorts of conversations we had over time. I'm not even sure I remember the specific moment, but I cherish our conversations. I'm happy that it was so moving to you. What changed? I think it's a lot of things, but it's not as if we're just coming along and going rogue. We are in the legacy of our ancestors, and my generation grew up learning about people like your father, learning about what nonviolent direct action and civil disobedience and active participation in our democracy through protest and voting both, and not just one or the other, can lead to. And we also saw the world, and a world in which we had unprecedented levels of income and wealth inequality not seen in the past century. A world in which when we said we had elected a black president, yet George Floyd could still be killed by a police officer, where in some ways we'd come so far, in some ways it seemed like we were stuck in our old ways, and there was a lot of anger and hurt and cognitive dissonance over that among my generation. People want to see a world in which there's justice at home and justice abroad, and they want to have futures for themselves where they can benefit from the wealth building and be able to retire and have health care without breaking the bank. All of those things are the context that my generation is coming from, and we've created an ethic of solidarity with each other. And I don't know if I can attribute it to one thing, but it's a combination of seeing what's going on in the world and seeing that it's wrong, and of the values that we were raised with.
Ariel, wow. Who would have? Yesterday was, and the day before, because Jonah Karsh, if not now Chicago, Ariel Gold, the Fellowship of Reconciliation, a group of which Dr. King was a member. He was immensely proud of being part of the Fellowship of Reconciliation because it goes across all lines that we have drawn amongst ourselves that God doesn't even see. Remember, if you look at the Bible, this was all the otherness that we have in ourselves. This is punishment. He said, if you all look alike and look at everything the same way, and you still kill each other, okay. I'm simplifying the Bible story, but really. And what did you make of the speech? What did you make of him coming at this moment, seeing him speak before our Congress? Because this is our country, right? I mean, this is our country, and that's what I hear you and Jonah. Well, all of us are saying that. I don't want my money spent this way. Just don't. You can't do this. Ariel.
It was such an offensive speech. First of all, it was full of lies. The lie that Israel doesn't target civilians, which has been well documented, of which there is an arrest warrant. The ICC came out with the arrest warrant yesterday or today for the targeting of civilians, the intentional targeting, and that repulsive thing about going into Rafah, and that it was only combatants who were killed. And the only logic for that, which is the logic of Netanyahu's administration, is that all Palestinians are combatants, that all of them represent that threat to Jewish supremacy, and all of them are targeted. It was, offensive to us in so many ways. One of the things I found interesting, though, so Netanyahu had that time of railing against the protests, which were outside. He can't seem to go anywhere these days without protests. And let's not forget, he should be used to these because the streets of Tel Aviv are filled with protests against him. So when you went on that rant about how the protesters are funded by Iran, I've been doing this for a long time, and Iran has never offered to send me a check.
And he said it so passionately. It's like he was accusatory. I was like, "Are you serious right now? You sound crazy."
Exactly. I thought Iran never offered me any checks, and
Oh
but he
God.
failed to mention, while smearing the protesters and saying that we were agents of Iran, he failed to mention that just the day before, for his arrival, hundreds of American Jews were arrested in the Capitol in a demonstration in protest of the genocide in Gaza and his visit. And so as he, spoke about the protesters, he declined to mention that essential fact. And what we know about the Netanyahu administration is that they have given up on American Jews. And the relationship now is with pro-Israel Christian Zionists. And
Wait.
He was speaking to in a lot of that speech, and especially when he says, we're doing this for you. We're doing this for you. And that's who that's what it's become.
Wait a minute. He's given up on American Jews. He's traded you in for Christian Zionists, for John Hagee.
That had took place quite a while ago now. American Jews are the demographics between us public opinion. If you look at the polls, we are shifting further and further away from support for Israel, especially the young generation of Jews. Props to Jonah. Right. And the Netanyahu administration has noticed this over the years. And there have been, in fact, statements of saying, like, we give up on them and our real targets are right-wing evangelical Christians.
That is crazy. I mean, but how does that make you feel, Jonah? He might say proud. I don't know, because these younger people, they're a little different.
Well, I do want to draw a distinction, which is that you'll find a lot of people, whether it's elected officials or American Jews, say that they revile Netanyahu. Netanyahu is an incredibly unpopular figure, including inside of Israel. That doesn't necessarily translate to support for Palestinian rights, opposition to the war. However, we are, as Ariel points out, seeing a huge increase, and polling bears out that at the very least, a substantial minority of American Jews are avowedly in support of Palestinian rights, and it makes me proud to be part of a legacy to say that the legacy of my people and all that we have gone through compels us to stand for our own liberation, but also to make sure that it does not come at the expense of another people. That's all. That's what my values tell me, and I'm immensely proud to be part of that tradition. And I hope that more American Jews come along soon.
Well, Ariel Gold, what did I tell you? I know my babies. Yeah, he said he was going to be proud. Well, we're getting some background noise. I'm just trying to figure out what that is, but that's okay. John Nichols from the
Yes,
Nation.
I'm with you.
You got Jonah Karsh from If Not Now Chicago. I don't know how much longer you'll be with us, but I'm glad he is because he now has a job. So
I'm very glad to hear that.
So he has to go to his job. But well, of course, we have our beloved sister friend, Ariel Gold from the Fellowship of Reconciliation. And we're going to have Congressman Jackson on at the top of the hour, Ariel and John Nichols. He was walking to someplace on the Hill, and I inadvertently turned it off. But as the good thing is, we'll all be on together for at least for a few minutes, because he was actually at the speech, as was Rashida Tlaib. I asked him, why, and he can explain it for himself. He said, I want to hear what he has to say. I don't agree with him, but I need to hear what he has to say, and I'm going to do that. And he said, but I didn't shake his hand. I said, thank you.
Well, he could have handed him an arrest warrant.
Well, ouch, John. So, what do you make of all of this? What did you make of the speech?
Mm-hmm.
What did you make of the protest? We haven't seen anything like this. Do you think he expected this?
Yes, I think he is a career politician. That's the thing to understand about Benjamin Netanyahu. I've covered politics in Israel and Palestine for a very long time. I think I first was around him 35 years ago. He's always been in politics, and it's what he does. He adjusts his politics to the moment. He is very bold. He is very intense. Yes, he anticipates what he's up against. The thing about him is, I think that he, at this point, has developed a confidence that tells him to just keep going, no matter what the protest is. He doesn't listen to the protest. He doesn't, respond to it. It's very important to understand that, as Jonah and others have pointed out, there are mass protests going on right now in Israel. On weekends, you will see tens of thousands of people protesting, and he has not responded to that. So it's not surprising that he wouldn't respond to protests here in the United States. The only thing that's different is that there is more outspoken opposition from within Congress, and that's huge. That is a massive development, not one that he will necessarily respond to, although it's one he's probably concerned about. But it is one that matters to all of us, right? This is, there's a certain element of righteousness, if you will, and a good righteousness that comes from getting on the right side of history, and that's what's happening here. Now, you asked what I made of the speech. I thought the speech was predictable, right? It is still a speech rooted in a confidence that he has the majority on his side, right? Not the majority of Americans, but the majority of Congress. That's all he cares about, right? He cares about the relationship that benefits him and benefits his project within Israel. So the speech was very predictable. And frankly, the protests were very healthy, right? I'm intrigued. People chose different ways to go at this, right? Some chose to be there physically, right? To listen to what was said. But remember, you can listen in person or you can listen online. It doesn't, either way. Many members of Congress I know chose not to be there as a way of protest, right? As a way of signaling that they did not want to be in the room where what they saw as an affront to a lot of their values, their ideals took place. Others chose to be there, and they chose to be there for different reasons, right? Some to lodge whatever symbolic protests they might be able to do, and some, simply to be present because they see it as a part of their job. I think all of these are appropriate responses, right?
Why?
Well, because at the end of the day, what I care about is what you say after the speech, right? What do you say when it's done? Do you say, I stand with Netanyahu and we're going to continue where we're going? Or do you say, this has got to stop? We have to have a change in direction as a country. The whole theater around the speech, right, is in many ways exactly what Netanyahu wants. He wants all this attention. He wants to be the subject of the day, right? Because at the end of the day, being talked about from his circumstance is better than being neglected, right? And for a variety of reasons, because this is good for him domestically in Israel, right? if he comes to the United States and he speaks to the Congress of the United States, that's good for him, right? It shows still that he has that influence, that ability to be present and to force a country that, frankly, probably many people in our leadership would probably rather not have had this occur, right? But he can force that to happen. For him, in a domestic political standpoint, that's beneficial. So he wants to be the center of attention. He wants to be the center of attention today. And note what's happened, right? The country is talking about him a lot.
Yeah.
And to the exclusion of the fact that we have one of the most amazing domestic political things going on in our history, right? A Black woman, the child of Jamaican and Indian immigrants, is on a trajectory that could make her president of the United States. And we are watching this phenomenon. This is a huge domestic story. And yet Netanyahu is able, even in that, to wedge himself into our discourse. And that's where he wants to be. You know, that's.
Oh, no, I mean, and yet, I mean, I want to catch Jonah before he goes.
Mhm.
And yet, presumptive nominee of the Democratic Party, you got to jump in here, John and Ariel, but Jonah, I know, has got to go to work. She was not there yesterday.
No.
She was at another event. Jonah, what did you make of that? Did that incline you to maybe look at voting for her?
Well, I'll tell you how I feel about what happened with Kamala Harris yesterday, not attending the speech and everything. Well, number one, you know, there are a number of reasons that President Biden stepped aside. But one of those reasons is that one of the reasons that a crisis was created, one of the reasons that he dropped in the polls prior to the debate and the debate performance cost him so much, was because of backlash to his administration's policy on Gaza. And Kamala Harris, by all indications, there were some leaks coming out of the administration that perhaps she was against some parts of that policy, wanted to see the president go farther in standing up, at the very least verbally, for Palestinian rights. And I think it's a good start by Vice President Harris to not want to associate herself with that right-wing spectacle. So I appreciate that from the Vice President. What our movement is demanding from her very explicitly is not just talk, but action, that we cannot be sending not another bomb is what we're calling our coalition. It came out of the Uncommitted movement in Michigan. We're saying not another bomb to Israel. We need to institute a full offensive arms embargo on Israel so that our money is not being used to kill Palestinian children. And you can wax poetic about how much you care about dignity for the Palestinian people, but if you're paying for the bombs that are killing them, it rings hollow. So it's a good start for Vice President Harris. We'd like to see more, both because it's the right thing to do, but also because we believe we understand greatly the imperative to defeat Trump, where our movement was pleased that Biden stepped aside because we didn't think that he could defeat Trump, and we understand the imperative of doing so. But we also understand that in order to defeat Donald Trump, and in order to get the youth vote and the Arab American vote and the progressive vote, Kamala Harris will have to listen to that movement.
Well, I know you're trying to calm everything down in the back, John Nichols. It's okay.
Yeah.
John, so what did you make of the vice president? She was at a campaign event.
Oh, look, I was actually signaling to somebody else in the room to kind of keep it quiet. My apologies.
It's okay.
But yes, look, I've interviewed the vice president about Gaza, and I've obviously followed her trajectory there. My sense is that her concern is genuine, but I think that what Jonah says is significant. There is what you say and what you do. Not being there, physically not being there, is an action. And it is a withdrawal of your presence. It may not seem like that much, but boy, in the overall scheme of these things, it's a big deal. And the fact that she chose to be elsewhere, I think does have significance. It does have consequence. It's not the end of a process. It is perhaps a beginning. But I do think that one of the things that you need to recognize here is that we are in a period of transition, that when they write the books about U.S. relations with Israel, this is going to be a big chapter, a huge chapter. Now, how it ends, I don't know. But what I can tell you is we are in a period where many folks who in the past you would have seen in that room, you didn't see in that room, or you saw objecting. So the trajectory is huge. Now we say, where did this chapter begin? Maybe it began in 1988 at the Democratic National Convention, where the Reverend Jackson, raised Palestinian rights to the level of a political party discussion, right? And that began an opening, but that opening was very, very small until now. Now it's much bigger. So that question becomes, how will Kamala Harris, as the all but certain nominee of the Democratic Party, respond to this issue? Will she give a major address? Will she say, look, I believe we have to change policy, or I believe we have to do certain things? I don't expect that she would have a radical statement. I think it would be, probably what many would see as small movement. But if she does that, that's a big deal. Why do I think it's a big deal? Because I know a little about history. And I can tell you this, when Hubert Humphrey was nominated in 1988, or 1968, I apologize, 1968, to replace Lyndon Johnson, the task was a twofold task. Johnson, people believe, needed to move aside because of his support for the Vietnam War. But then it wasn't just replacing Johnson. It was also Humphrey needed to move toward an explicit anti-war stance. Humphrey never really got there until the last weeks of the campaign. When he did get there, his numbers started to rise exponentially. It's often said that if they'd had 3 more days, he would have beaten Richard Nixon. But the thing is, that means he came to the right stance 3 days too late. And so what we do need to understand is that the American people would like to see a change in our stance. As a candidate for the presidency, Kamala Harris needs to weigh that and consider it. If indeed it is in her heart and in her understanding to move toward a more pro-peace, pro-reconciliation stance, I think that would be very good for her politically. She'd be attacked for it, but I do think it would be good for her politically. And also, again, we so often filter politics through, positioning and being in the right place at the right time. We also have to understand the morality of it, right? It is morally good to be on the side of saving the lives of children in Palestine, children and adults as well. And so I think people respond to that. If someone takes a stand and says, look, I want to end this violence, I want to end this killing, I think that has a profound impact. So we'll see where it goes. I'm going to cover it, obviously, as will you, Santita, and Ariel will be watching it with intense interest, as well as Jonah. Again, I take us back to that core concept, though. We are in an absolutely historic moment.
Yeah.
This is big history that is playing out. And we are literally on a radio show on a Thursday morning talking about a visit by an ambassador to Israel to the U.S. Congress that was protested, and that had people say we won't be there, had all of this going on around it. That in itself is a big deal. Yeah. And then we are also speaking at the same time about the prospect that the Democratic Party's candidate for president might alter, and I'm not saying this will happen, but might shift the stance as regards Israel and Palestine. I mean, just the fact that we're discussing that is on the arc of history, that is a massive shift.
I can't believe we're here.
I know. Yeah.
I know we're going to have the congressman up shortly, and I know you've got to go, John Nichols, and I know Jonah has to leave. But Ariel, if you could stay with me for a few more minutes. Is there anything you'd like to say, Jonah, before you go to your job, young man?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just plug, if you Google "Not Another Bomb," there's a petition that you can sign. We're trying to gather as much support as possible for to ask the vice president to come out and support an arms embargo on Israel, and we believe that this will help her electorally in defeating Donald Trump, in addition to being 100% the right thing to do. And so I would just say to your listeners, please take a look at Not Another Bomb and consider getting involved in the fight for justice.
Absolutely. And is it Sun Tzu? You can, I don't have a phone number yet, but I will very soon. What you can do is please respond in the chat. Please respond in the chat. I want you to respond to what you've heard. He was responding to what you said, John Nichols. John Nichols, your thoughts before you go?
Sure. Um, as I've said, not only is this a significant point historically, it's also, a big deal electorally, right? Something's shifting in America. We're seeing a real shift in our politics. And the question always when there's a shift in politics is how far does it go? How big does it become? And what I would suggest to you is that that will be influenced by the people, by movements, right? And so Ariel is here, Jonah's here, and they're parts of movements that are going to become increasingly significant in the next couple of weeks. The Democratic National Convention will be held in Chicago. It is the city in 1968 where the Democrats gathered in the midst of the Vietnam War. And there were great protests in the streets, and we remember those protests in the streets. But sometimes we forget the real crisis was within the hall. And it was that when an anti-war resolution was brought at the Democratic National Convention, it was voted down. They rejected taking the stand that the American people wanted them to take. And so then they went out into that campaign and they didn't win, right? Mm-hmm. And so when we watch this convention in Chicago, we should keep a close eye on what goes on in the streets and with the protests, because that is a plea to the convention to do the right thing. But then we also have to keep a close eye on what happens in the hall and to see whether they do the right thing. It can't just be a big show. The convention cannot just be a celebration where they wave banners and things of that nature, although there'll be a lot of excitement because of what's happening, because of this great progress, I think, politically. But it has to be more. There has to be substance associated with this gathering. And I can think of few elements of substance that would be greater than to have a shift in position toward a stance that says, look, we have to have peace and justice in the Middle East for Palestine and for Israel. And the interesting thing about it is we've had that discussion before. We had it in 1988, and the convention did not do. They had the right discussion, but they didn't take the right stand. Now the question is, all these decades later, can we have the discussion and take the right stand? That's what we should be watching for. And I can tell you, already we are in a transformational moment. The question is how much transformation, and the excitement, I think there can be genuine excitement, is at the possibility of something more than we have seen at any time in our history. This is the realization of so many efforts that have gone on for so long. Jim Zogby talks about having been outside the White House with 50 people asking for justice for Palestine. Now there are hundreds and hundreds of thousands in the streets, millions expressing their concern. There are delegates to the Democratic National Convention who have been voted for by hundreds of thousands of people in Michigan, in Minnesota, in Hawaii, in places across this country. We know that there is a plea for action, and we will see whether that plea for action is realized. I can say it no other way to say this is an exciting time. This is
no question.
It's a major time, and we are lucky to be able to be a part of it, to be engaged with it. But we cannot be satisfied simply with our presence, right? What we have to look for is that this time really is a transition, so that we never find ourselves here again, right? That we look back on this and say, it was horrible what was happening in the world at that time. We recognized it, and we chose to change the course of history so that it would never happen again.
We can change the world. John Nichols from The Nation magazine, Jonah Karsh, if not now, Chicago. Ariel Gold, stay right here. Sending you all so much love today. And Ariel, it is a game-changing moment. And I realize politics, being what it is, that the vice president, she is campaigning. And as a vice president, when you are someone's number two, you don't have the space to to say what you want to say. You are in a meeting, you're debating back and forth. Hey, even the president and chief of staff can trump you, quite frankly, because they're the gatekeeper, right? I mean, John, we know how this works.
Yeah.
But now she's kind of easing into a space that, quite frankly, is a dangerous space to creep into. I mean, still in American politics, AIPAC is enormously, enormously powerful, and you are also looking at the fact that not just AIPAC. I mean, just this has such rich religious overtones for us. See, I don't want to downplay that for anyone. I mean, I might not agree with John Hagee, but I cannot say that I don't feel that he feels sincerely what he feels, and I respect that. I don't agree with it, but I respect it. I just wish many of my Jewish brothers and sisters would get a clue, because he was like, if you don't hew to my point of view, then you're gonna go to hell. I mean, that I don't get. I don't understand. I don't understand how you come up with that if you're not one of the chosen at the end, because that's what they believe. But I mean, but what did you make of yesterday? There were so many moving parts, because they were making over. They were looking at the fact that the vice president was not there. She's a presumptive nominee of the Democratic Party. She could have been there. The speaker said, "You should have been here. I was supposed to turn to you and shake your hand." What happened? Do you think that the uncommitteds can be retrieved because of what she did yesterday, or will more be required?
It's going to take a lot more than that. And let's not forget that she is meeting with Netanyahu today.
Okay.
And much will depend on how she carries that meeting. Is she going to give him a big bear hug, or is she going to be distanced and naming, and please excuse some power tool noise outside my house, but
Okay.
is she going to be firm and distant, talking about the suffering of Palestinians in Gaza, saying a deal needs to be struck, there needs to be a ceasefire. She could invoke the families of the hostages, 2 of whom were arrested in the speech yesterday for wearing T-shirts that simply said "seal the deal." So she could invoke them. And so there are lots of paths without being far left radical and really igniting AIPAC's power that she could do. She could carry off this meeting really strategically. And I hope to see that, because we have quite a while before she would be the president. So she's going to walk a tight line right now from not breaking too much from the Biden administration, which would harm her and cause turmoil, while it looks like what we've seen just by her not showing up to the speech yesterday is showing her empathy and understanding, continued empathy and understanding for the pro-Palestine movement, including the really excellent statement that she made previously about the student protesters. So she could continue, just that kind of place that she was in, of acknowledging empathy, but not yet speaking about policy, of being firm to Netanyahu, siding with the families of the hostages who want the same thing that the pro-Palestine protesters want. We all want a ceasefire, life for all people, release of all hostages. So there is unifying language that I hope she really embraces.
Well, what's the path forward? Because, we see in Michigan, for example, and just really we see throughout the Arab American community, I mean, the deep pain. These people, many of them have lost entire families. People forget Congresswoman Tlaib's family, her grandmama's over in Gaza. I mean, I cannot imagine.
Actually, in
West Bank?
West Bank, yeah.
I can't, but you know what? I can't imagine. When they would have storms in South Carolina or Virginia, I'm calling my grandmothers, "Are you okay?"
That's right.
I cannot imagine because the untold story of what is happening in the West Bank, John Nichols.
Oh, of course. There's so much going on there that it's different, but it is profound and serious. And I do have to go, but before I go, 2 things I want to say. First and foremost, I am going to today in this moment nominate Ariel Gold to be a campaign advisor because her counsel there was precisely. I mean, it was so well said, and I'm not surprised, but it was so well said, and that is such a wise way through this. And so what we're hearing here, even in this show, in this moment, we're hearing a path that the vice president could take, and one that not everyone would be satisfied with, but that's reality of politics. It's a very, very wise approach. Now, on the second reality of how this plays out in the context of electoral politics, let's be honest with ourselves. The threat, the concern about Donald Trump is real, and a tremendous number of people will vote based on that, right? They will say, no matter whether I agree or not, I'm going to vote for Kamala Harris. A, because I think her candidacy is historic and exciting. B, because I think it's necessary to stop Donald Trump. And that will be a that combination is a remarkably unifying reality. But you are correct. There is a portion of the electorate that says, look, somehow I've got to this is my last chance to get a signal to these people, right? That this has got to stop. And if, as I fear, the violence continues and the lack of resolution, the lack of direction continues into the fall, into November, maybe even if we have a flare up, which would not surprise me, that if that is the case, then there will be people who will say, look, I have to withhold my vote, right? Or I have, somehow I'm not going to. How many people fall into that category will be decided very much by what the vice president says and by what Democrats say, in many of them, and people who are validators, people who can effectively say that, look, I know this woman, I trust her, I believe that if she becomes president, we will have a different course. That's two different things, right? It's what she says, it's what other folks say, but that will have a huge impact. Do I know where it's going to take us? I do not. But what I can suggest to you is that in talking to people from many different backgrounds, Arab Americans, Palestinian Americans, in fact, I was talking to a Palestinian American activist on Sunday, moments after Biden stood down. And this guy had said to me that he was not going to vote, he wasn't going to vote for Biden. And then suddenly we literally were around each other when this happened. And he said, well, I'm going to have to think about this, So that's an interesting, I think it's the honest place where we're at. We're at I'm going to have to think about this moment for some of these folks. Also for some young people who've become very impassioned and concerned about this. But in politics, what I'll tell you, you have three places to be. One, the right place. One, the wrong place. And one, the place of possibility, right? And that I think is where we're at right now. We're in the place of possibility. And where that goes, how that is realized, will be decided over the next couple months, maybe even sooner, maybe at the Democratic National Convention. This is a really big deal moment. And again, I know I keep saying that, but I want to emphasize it. What we as people who are engaged with these issues do this summer, this fall, may matter more than at any other time, because this is the point where possibility tells us, not certainty, but possibility tells us we could get to that right place. If we get to that right place, imagine this. Imagine if in November, Kamala Harris is elected president of the United States, an amazing breakthrough moment for this country. And she is elected as a candidate saying that we are going to re-examine our foreign policy and look for ways to go forward as the country that at its best we have been, but that we have not been enough in our history. So
she has John Kennedy as a guide.
What?
It sounds like his inaugural address.
Well,
when he cast the gauntlet down on, we're not going to be an imperialist colonial power.
Yeah.
No.
Well, look, our history is full of people, John Quincy Adams,
yes,
and others who, at key points, realized the direction we should go. So we do. It is not separate from our history. It is a part of our history. It's just what we lift up in a particular moment. And so the fact of the matter is that that a new president could give a speech that is transformative. And you know what the interesting thing is? Having traveled a lot in this country, I'm speaking to you today from Tennessee. I hear it everywhere. I hear everywhere in this country people saying, we want a different foreign policy. We want a foreign policy that is rooted in, it keeps us safe. People want to be safe. But beyond that, they would like to see peace and justice as driving forces in our foreign policy. It is much preferable. It's the dream, right? It's the dream that Jesse Jackson ran on in 1988. It's the dream that was taken to the convention in 1988. And the reason that to this day we speak about his speech to that convention is because he expressed something that was in the heart of the American people. And what an amazing thing what an amazing moment it would be if that could happen again.
Well, we did it in 84.
Yep.
But for the first time in Reverend's then 25-year public career, Ariel Gold and John Nichols, July 17, 1984 was the first time America and the world heard him without a filter.
Yeah.
It wasn't a soundbite. You got to hear him for however long the speech was, about an hour. And nobody moved. Because I do tie his vote totals doubling in 4 years to that moment.
Yep.
Because for the first time, and I think for the first time, people are hearing Ariel and Jonah. And these young people. So when you say that the encampments and these protesters are anti-Semitic, they're like, wait, we're leading this. Mm-hmm. No. You're not going to do this in my name. I'm not going to let you do this. And I can hear Dr. King. I can see Rabbi Heschel saying, please continue. This is what we were talking about. I can see, I can see the white farmers,
sure,
who stood with us, because people believe in freedom and justice. They do. I don't care. That's the basic thing.
Santita, they hear it in their churches and their mosques and their synagogues. There is a moral underpinning to this, which we all have a connection to, right? It's there. It's just a question of, can our politics be as decent as our language when we gather on a Friday night or when we gather on a Sunday morning, right? Can our politics be that good? We don't know the answer to that question. But what we have a twofold responsibility, and then I fear I do have to go, but we have a twofold responsibility. First, it is to believe it is possible to have a better politics, not to fall into the trap of cynicism. And two, it is to take the steps that are necessary to get us that better politics. I see that happening now. I think people believe, and I think people are taking the steps. And then the only question is, do our leaders rise to the occasion? If they do, we have the possibility, we don't have to look far in the future. We have the possibility of a different politics now, and we have a possibility of a different country in a very short order. So here we are. Look, we've gathered on this morning to talk about Netanyahu's speech. So many disappointments, so much frustration. And yet we end, I hope, or at least I'm going to end my part of it, with great, great hope and a great sense of possibility. Instead of feeling, like, oh no, we're on the same track, the same things are happening again. I feel quite the opposite. I feel like there really is a possibility here, really a sense that this country can go in a different and better way. And I refuse to surrender that, right? Like my friend Rebecca Solnit says, hope in the dark. I'd rather that we hope. I'd rather that we believe, even if it is very, very difficult, than that we surrender to cynicism and to giving up on this. Because, boy, I see a critical juncture. Surrendering would be madness at this point. Giving up on our hope for a better country would be madness at this point. Because we may not get it again. May not be this good again.
We are here. And I'm going to tell you, we love you, John.
Love you too.
Ariel, when I hear, and I love you, Ariel, my sister friend, one of the great gifts of this moment has been getting to share time and space with you, really, and getting to know you. It is, you never know you have, oh my gosh. You really do have family out here. And we really are one.
We are.
I'm sorry, girl, I don't want to lose my lashes. But it kind of hit me because I know how we met. And I know only God could do this.
That's right.
And even in this moment, I have to be grateful. I have to be grateful to everybody here. Donald Trump is pushing us in his own way.
Yep.
And I pray for him and his family. I do. I pray that all of the gifts that he's been given, that he will use in a way that will lift people. Because God's got to use him too.
Yep.
And I believe
That's why
that.
we show up with love.
Oh boy. I'm sorry. It just got me when I looked at you. Because the thing is, we can have the right world, Ariel. You don't have to kill hundreds of thousands of people. You have to kill millions of people. You killed 6 million Jews in the Second World War, but what is it? The Russians lost more than 50 million people. King Leopold killed 20 million Africans. When will we learn? It's all wrong. And to see the hubris, if you will, of Netanyahu, I'm like, how damaged are you? I mean, that's where I go. I mean,
Yeah.
I know his brother was killed in war, but there's something, he's damaged. And people who are damaged damage other people, Ariel. I mean, I'm not giving him a pass.
No, but like you said, that's why we pray for him, because it's only through the reconciliation of all of our people, of all people, that we can actually build that better world. And that does not erase accountability. We can pray for somebody. That does not mean we don't also hold them accountable, but it's why our movement, why we come from love, not from hatred and ugliness. And when we come from love, we're able to shine a mirror on that hatred and ugliness and show it for what it is, and instead come for ourselves and show the world that we all want to live in. And I just still remain in awe of Rashida Tlaib yesterday. The courage. Wow. I mean, I think if you look up dignity in the dictionary
Absolutely.
these days, it's that picture of her on her birthday, silently witnessing.
The only person
and holding that dignity.
That's right. John Conyers has got to be cheering her on.
Yep.
I know when they were having people who were going to run against her, and they were Black. And I hear y'all. I hear you. But you know what? I said, no, I'm with Rashida. Because I know her politics. I know her heart. I know people who she helps. I mean, when you come in the door, Rashida sees a human being. The Congresswoman, excuse me. She's a human being. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for that. I'm looking for that, y'all. As I fight for my ancestors who were enslaved here, Ariel. I mean, look, I get it. My grandmother wouldn't watch Roots because it reminded her too much of the pain. She and Rosa Parks came from the same place. When they looked in the mirror, they saw abuse.
And let's just say we won't be fooled by shiny objects like Netanyahu pointing to the Ethiopian soldier as his, image of diversity, or the Druze soldier. So we aren't fooled by the shiny objects of diversity in hatred, and that you can parade that. We are looking for the genuineness, and we see that in Rashida.
I mean, because a tyrant, a murderer, I don't care what your color or background is, that's what you are. I mean, stop. And you can't justify all these people you've killed. And so for Americans who are standing up, and for people all over the world, but particularly Americans, because we've been subject to a lot of different influences, but that's the way the system works, everybody. It's structured that way. I had a moment. I was so proud of all of us, and to see us begin to stand up. Ariel, what do you want us to know before we go? I mean, what? I mean, there's a whole lot to unpack here, and I think we're going to continue to unpack it, because Kamala Harris is a politician and she has to respond to the vicissitudes of the day, but she's also a human being.
That's right. And we don't always get that. I'm not saying that Biden wasn't a human being.
Yeah.
There's a part of Biden that was closed down.
Yeah.
There was, whether it was age or whatever it is, and sometimes some part of somebody is closed down and not reachable. And so that wasn't an area of his humanness that we could penetrate. But I absolutely believe that we can with Kamala. I'm really hopeful on that. And I also think that her husband is an asset.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard Donald Trump say yesterday that Kamala hates the Jews. And I thought, oh, shame on you. Oh, just shame on you. You only happens to be married to one.
Like, with the crazy stuff that he has said, are you
Came-
for real?
Mind you, his family came from a shtetl in Poland that they escaped because of the pogroms. My family did as well, and I like that. You know, I felt that familiarity there. And we've seen, we were talking earlier about the change in Jewish American public opinion, and that it's coming from the ground up. It's coming from the ground up, but they're influencing the older generations too. They're talking to their parents and their grandparents, and it's changing the dynamic there. And so I think having Kamala's husband, a visible practicing Jew, is really to our advantage here. And we know, in fact, that his children empathize with Palestinians, and those conversations take place. They took place at Passover tables across the country this year, and I know my family, we're long-time staunch supporters of Israel. I know our family, we've got no Stand with Israel signs in anybody's front yard.
Well, you know what? Look,
because we all agree on that baseline that what's happening in Gaza has got to stop.
And that's the human response. Because I don't think it's a false choice to, you can support Israel and say, I don't support this. In fact, I think you really support Israel when you want the best of the tradition of Judaism to shine. We've got Congressman Jonathan Jackson with us. I'm so glad that you were able to hang out, Ariel, so you can see Congressman Jackson. And of course, this is the executive director of the Fellowship of Reconciliation, but you know Ariel Gold. Congressman, you were at the number one hello, and thank you for bearing with your sister who was all thumbs this morning.
And I just want to appreciate Congressman Jackson as well, because, FOR, we've been working on gun violence, addressing the gun violence epidemic. He introduced our faith letter into the official congressional record last spring, and we remain grateful for that, and look forward to keeping you updated on that work we're doing.
Well, thank you, Ariel. I look forward to working more closely with you.
He tries to do some great work. Congressman, you, number one, good morning, and thank you so much for making some time, and pardon me for your sister having all thumbs this morning.
Love you, Santita. I appreciate your work, your program, and keep up doing the great work.
I love you, and you keep on doing the great work. I know Chaparral is sitting here. She might want to jump in. I don't know, because she wants to watch everything.
Hey, Chaparral.
But what you were at the Prime Minister's speech yesterday. Why did you go? I see Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib was there as well. So some people opted to go, and some people opted not to go. But she went there, and it was just interesting. Why did you go?
Well, I went because we are elected officials. We are serve the public to negotiate, to seek justice, and people have to talk and be in a room together, even if there are extreme views. Other extreme issues have been argued and fixed in that same rotunda before, slavery on in our history and beyond. And this is that moment that all of the relevant, powerful people were under that dome. And so there were roughly 1,000 people in the chamber. I went there to show my respect for the state of Israel, for the people of Israel, and to further the release of the hostages that are still detained, and the release of the Palestinian prisoners to help bring about a stop to the war. So there are many things that are there, but I thought it was more defiant to be there, not applauding him, but respectfully representing the first district and our place on the floor.
So what did you hear yesterday when you heard him speak?
I heard a lot of pain in his voice. I heard panic in his voice. I heard him expanding a war, not seeking a peaceful solution, If you look at it as art, negative space, and positive space, what wasn't in the speech is what I would like to address. There was no understanding of the slaughter of the children in Gaza. There was no empathy for that. There was no path forward beyond the bombing. When does it stop? What is the pathway to a two-state solution? Where is reconciliation? I heard nothing about a pathway forward. I just heard further entrenchment in war. And now after this, and then there's Iran, and then we're going against barbarism versus civilization. I just heard a very divisive, hardline speech.
What did your, I mean, because you had a good many colleagues who were
And he made some historical references that were accurate on what are some forms of anti-Semitism,
Mhm.
but the did not give us a path towards peace. So part history lesson, great. The path forward, bad.
So, and so when you have that confluence, you know, that dichotomy, I guess the dark and the light, the truth and that which is untrue, how do you discern? I mean, where do you fall as a lawmaker when you hear what he's got to say? I mean, you're on the Foreign Relations Committee, yes?
Yes.
So you would have
Um,
to meet him, see him. Well, is there any daylight if you meet him? Is there anything you can say? Do you listen? I mean, how do you proceed forward?
Well, two things. One, I met with the hostage families, on the Tuesday before the speech and Wednesday morning before the speech. That was one form. Then went to hear Prime Minister Netanyahu. The families of the hostages are on a different page. They're saying we want to see life. We want to live. We want our family members back. And after 9 months and 290 days, this strategy has failed. That's their words. Let me share with you one other thing that they shared. I was with one of the hostage families, and I heard them out, and they said this is Netanyahu's legacy.
Oh
I
wow!
had the hostage family member autograph and sign the book for me because I shared with her. I saw the story of her mother. Her mother and father had both been kidnapped, and they're both 80 years of age. And she shared with
Oh,
me their beautiful history. And the mother's been returned, but the 80-year-old father is still being held captive. That's my influence. That's my drive, is to bring hostages home. And I know you cannot bring people home when you're bombing. We cannot talk about aid getting into Gaza because of bombing. 400 UN workers have been killed. 100 journalists have been killed. You can't do anything while we're bombing. And if there was any success of the hostages being returned and captured, that was through the Israeli Defense Force intelligence when they strategically went in and retrieved 5 family members. That was not in dropping 2,000 pound bombs that have a reverberation and damage for a half a mile in every direction. And so you cannot get the Gulf state members to want to up the sanctions on Iran. As a matter of fact, they are normalizing relationships with Iran. They are strengthening ties with China. We are very much distracted, and they're not looking at Iran as their threat. So our colleagues and allies are going on a different page. I also had the opportunity to be with the ambassador from UAE to the United States this morning. I just left his breakfast where he was giving us some information. He was not in attendance at the speech yesterday. Usually all the ambassadors are. Many of the most significant ambassadors in the Gulf states were not in attendance at Netanyahu's speech yesterday. 15 years ago, that was unheard of. There were tens of thousands of people outside protesting. I hadn't seen this place locked down with that much security since after January 6th and before President Biden had given his inaugural address. It was totally fortified around here. And the embassies around the world are beginning to say, hey, we could be looking at a change in policy because the young people are going in a different direction. So it's important that we understand the history, continue to stand for Israeli defense, help get the hostages out, and then talk about the release of the Palestinian prisoners. This is in their words, Santita. One of the young men whose relative has been arrested or has been kidnapped, he says, according to their, and this was in the Foreign Affairs meeting, he says even theologically, biblically, they can justify the release of the hostage for the person that may potentially do them harm in the future. So he was talking about a prisoner for hostage swap. And he said this in our Foreign Affairs meeting that was chaired by Chairman McCall and Ranking Member Meeks. I mean, so I just want to get the information out. These aren't my words, and I want to honor the wishes of the families of the prisoners and the hostages. And let us get off this page with Mr. Netanyahu. And many of the people that I know that I'm close with in the community are not supporters of Netanyahu. I imagine there's a gut-wrenching feel on not changing horses and the jockeys in the middle of a race or in the middle of a fight. You can't change out the generals. But sometimes you have to stop back and say something is wrong. And what's going to be the long-term picture? What is the path towards peace? I did not hear that from Mr. Netanyahu.
What do you want to hear from these presidential candidates in the United States coming into the fall? We've already had the Republican convention, and now we're about to have the Democratic convention. We're mindful of the fact that the vice president was not at the speech yesterday. She had a previous engagement. What do you expect to hear from these candidates? What do we need to hear?
Oh, I think people should be very careful. Let me digress for a moment. I'm making a bunch of conspiratorial theories. You couldn't have made up all the events that happened in the last 2 weeks. I mean, sometimes things happen that are beyond your imagination. The young shooter terrorized, traumatized American that made an attempt on President Trump's life, who looked online what happened with the Kennedy case. Like, that's unbelievable. The understaffing of the Secret Service, the Secret Service director, I'm glad she's gone, and rightfully so. Mr. Netanyahu coming here, it's a courtesy that we give to heads of state. They can bring laundry or whatever. They said he brought a cargo of laundry.
Why?
This was in the Washington Post. I don't really like getting his laundry done in the United States. This is reported in the Washington Post. I mean,
I can only catch minutia. I missed that one, right?
Okay, I'm gonna send it over to you, and then you go back and you see the Biden administration. They slipped and tripped, thought they were being clever in asking for an early debate before the convention, which never happens. And then they thought Trump jumped too fast after his conviction, and then went on and gave him. He accepted the debate. Then President Biden had some challenges, and then Trump fixed his laser beams just on Biden. And now here we are 4 weeks out from the convention. The president catches COVID and steps aside for health reasons. And Ms. Harris comes up. J.D. Vance, who called Trump a Hitler, people that vote for him an idiot, who's a never Trumper. He says all these horrific things about the former president and never apologizes. Is J.D. Vance just a hypocrite or what? So, Santita, the events and the overwhelming love and embrace that Vice President Harris has received, and now her biggest challenge right now is picking her vice president so that she can prosecute Donald J. Trump and his crew for the next 100 days in front of the American public and continue the great work she had already started in the 117th and 118th Congress. I couldn't be happier. So, having said that, you cannot make up these events, Santita. You just can't. You got to trust the process.
I'm just going to shut up. Then I'm not going to ask you about the convention because I don't know.
Let me tell you, I think the convention is going to be extremely energized. I think I would like to see her potentially pick someone from the Midwest. You got to win these key battleground states. I think she couldn't have picked a better opponent. I think she needs to lean back in, but if, she can be nicer than me, but she should lean in on who's the oldest person in the race now that's going to be 80 years old, that I mean, like, so it's not good to pick on people, but he started it. So, like Queen Latifah said, two wrongs don't make it right, but it makes it even. So it's like, come on, man. So now he doesn't want to be called old. Uh, and then you got JD Vance, who's a very interesting and a bit of a weird character. I think the better people get to know JD Vance, the less they're going to like him. I mean, he just changed that name to JD, the initials, 10 years ago. He's called like Jimmy Damon, whatever. You got to watch people to keep changing their names too many times. Like, he done changed his name 2 or 3 times. Then he asked, what has Vice President Harris done? I beg your pardon. He's been handpicked by a one man, Peter Thiel, and supported. He's the face of all negative action. And then he has to look down on Mrs. Harris, having been a prosecutor, an attorney general, a U.S. senator, a vice president that's passed record legislation. Here's what I'm going to give. I'll give you a prediction, Santita, since everybody is sitting in on our living room for our morning talk. This race is going to become so nasty, and so divisive. That's my prediction.
You think so?
That President Trump, former President Trump, rapist President, former Trump, okay? And if you ever do something that egregious and awful, you know you have a new handle in front of your name: felon, rapist. They call you by the crime that you've committed. And the press has been very kind to him and sanitizing him and not saying what he's done and reminding people. You let an insurrectionist, you put that on the front of their name. Officer Sicknick got killed because of his actions on this Hill. And they never recognized him at the Republican convention. I mean, how awful. I'm glad they recognized the firefighter, but they could have recognized Officer Sicknick.
Mm-hmm.
And what's going to happen in this race is they're going to show their misogyny and their hatred, not only for women, but also for Black women. And I'm betting that's going to backfire on them. But they're going there, and they're not going to be able to hide it. Yeah, it's kind of like an abusive man that if a man is not abusive, no matter what you say or do, he's not going to raise his hand to you. I mean, he just can't. It's just not in his nature. And for an abusive man, the slightest thing you do, he's going to always want to become aggressive. And so there's a pattern, a behavior that has been established, and people are going to see it, that he's not going to be able to hide his disgust, his contempt, and the lips aren't going to be able to conceal what his heart shall reveal. It's just going to pour out. He's not going to be able to help himself. He's going to say the most vile things. He's going to try to contain himself. They're just not going to be able to do it.
I don't think he can do it, Congressman. I don't
No.
think he can. He can't. It's not in, what did you say, in the nature?
It's in his nature. You're going to see it. Yeah,
Well, I mean, but how do you think we're going to react? I mean, Black people, Black women in particular. I mean, because they've been trying to drive a wedge between Black men and Black women, and Black men have stepped up and they've said, "Oh no, we're not going to let you do that."
Yeah, it's gonna energize our community. There's another thing that you oftentimes say in politics. You want to be on the right side of anger, and I can tell you one other thing: an angry voter is a good voter. So the more he pisses people off, the more they're gonna come out. And so he's gonna piss a lot of people off, and then they're not gonna be able to help it. He's been trying to play nice, but that'll last another day, huh?
Well, didn't he just say, I said I was gonna change? He said, that's over. I said, oh.
He said that. Did he say that?
Yeah, he did. Only he would say something like that. Come on.
That's funny.
They're talking. So I'm trying to figure out what way to go. How do we react to that? I mean, just in terms of your public comments, how do you react to the nastiness that I really believe is coming? Because I've seen the memes and I see him edging. I see them all edging toward it, and it's getting nasty.
Yeah.
But you also see Trump. Chaparral said he's trying to get out of the debates. They said he's trying to get out of the debates. Do you believe that he can resist?
Um, I don't think so. I don't. I don't think so. So a friend of mine in New York has a big crisis management firm, and he had met Mr. Trump many years ago in New York because they had called to see if they were going to engage him for his crisis at that time, whatever it was in the 80s he was going through. So my guy says he gets in there, and I don't know who's Trump's secretary, Jane, or at the time, and he gets in and meets Trump, and Trump says, "Well, so what's your strategy, and what do you recommend?" He said, "Well, I think you should like dial it down a bit, like step back." And he says before he was finished with the first sentence, Trump yelled out to his secretary, "Hey, get him out of here! How did he come in? Who even got this guy in here?" So it's not in his nature to dial it down. And he fired one of the top crisis management firms before they got hired because he told them to dial it down a little bit.
Congressman, okay, to be fair, you've met him before.
Yes.
Who is he?
Who is he?
Donald Trump. What? I'm trying to figure him out.
Oh, Donald Trump. He's he's in some ways an authentic American. He's got some of the if you want to call them I'd say characteristics. I don't want to say qualities, but he's got the characteristics and the values of P.T. Barnum. And the more you get to read and know who P.T. Barnum was, who brought the greatest circus to town, the better you'll understand President Donald J. Trump. He brings a circus to town, and you can count on that. I mean, P.T. Barnum created April Fool's Day. P.T. Barnum came up with "There's a sucker born every minute." Okay, I mean, this guy brings a big circus around. I mean, look at how he played out Haley and Nikki Haley. She says the worst things about him, and then without apologizing, he shows you what a politician is. Make her say everything good about me without taking back those words. Okay, look at what J.D. Vance said about him. He gets the person to.
Welcome to the Jackson family table, y'all. Oh my gosh, I hate that he was cut off like this, but you know what? It kind of gives you I wish you could call in, but you can't. But I tell you, what a joy to have had Congressman.
Hey, I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that. So he made the people that said the worst things about him introduce him. He couldn't have been having more fun, like laughing at them, having said all those vile things. Now it makes them a hypocritical little liar. So it just shows they were trying to hustle him. He out hustled them. He made them. You're like, you don't have to apologize. Just get up there. And he sat out there in the audience, observing the greatest show on earth. Like, this is the same fool that ran around the country talking about me. Now you're going to see all great people of America that this is the fool I told you he was, because he's going to sit up there and praise my name.
And now I own him.
I mean, there's some language that I like want to use, but it's please like, oh my God, you're making me very comfortable talking to all my fam up here. Hey, it's like Chairman Meeks, Florida Ranking Member Meeks, soon to be chairman. I'll ask him some question and he'll just give it to me real plain and straight. He'll say, I went to UCLA. I grew up I went to UCLA under the corner of Lenox Avenue, so he comes out of Harlem. So I'm like, yeah, that is quotable from UCLA. Okay. Sometimes you need a you need a curb view, not a bird's eye view. I'm like, what is this? Who's this dude hustling? And I hope nobody ever goes down into one of the old movie theaters and try to make some money on that 3-car mountain like I did. Okay, you can be played a fool, but not twice. I'm not going to do it. I didn't know the guy shuffling, the guy putting the money out, and the guy standing around the corner were all working together. Yeah. So now you see them all working together.
Oh, and I think you know what you have lightened my load. I now have my heart is not heavy. You have made me laugh about this crazy time because I
Let me
have.
tell you, you're gonna see the greatest show on earth, and there's gonna be something very miraculous to happen, and it's just you can't beat an idea whose time has come. Joe Biden had some challenges early on in his career, and some
Mhm.
things that won't have not aged well. But I mean, he was off to a bad start, but he's made one hell of a comeback and a strong finish. I mean, he's going to go down as one of the most consequential presidents of our lifetime. And we had a chance to see that with his vice president having been right there, from having put a black woman on the ticket a heartbeat away from the presidency to ensuring her nomination as the first Democratic nominee, black female, to flipping the House. And the pathway's been set for Hakeem Jeffries to become the Speaker of
Mhm.
the House, to the not only putting, but having been the first person to even interview an African American woman to go on the Supreme Court. I mean, the grounds that he's laid in this infrastructure act and the Build Back Better plan initially, the money has been fully funded, allocated, set aside. It's working its way through the government's bureaucracy and system to remove all the lead service lines in Chicago and around the
Mm.
country. That money's been put into the EPA budget. It just takes a while for them to make the protocols and everything before the money rolls out. For the human infrastructure investments that have been made, to signing historic gun legislation the first time in 30 years, there's going to be so many things that people are, the more you get to know, the more excited you're going to be. And this is the highest funding level African American colleges, HBCUs, have ever been at.
Mhm.
I believe Trump had doubled it, and then Biden exceeded it.
Mhm.
So there's a false narrative and a lie going on that Trump did all this for black folks. And when people ask me, I'm like, tell me what? I mean, tell that to the tell that to the Central Park Five. Tell me what has he done for like black boys? Okay, like he's hired some entertainers. Good for him, but he's an entertainer. At the end of the day, he's P.T. Barnum, Donald J. Trump.
Oh, but I looked. Do you remember I was living in New York when Central Park Five were arrested, and he called for the death penalty for those boys.
Yeah, and never
And
apologized. They've
never
been found in a
apologized.
sense. He's never apologized and says today some disparaging thing. Got convicted of rape and then badgers the witness, badgers the woman. Like, how can someone like say that? So I've heard one of my colleagues the other day said, "Oh, Kamala, she's part of that." I don't even want to say the DEI. And I said, "Wait a minute." I said, "I was very disappointed that you said that. I mean, come on. You got a daughter. How do you explain to her that you're voting for a guy that was convicted of rape?" I said, "So now we don't have to go there, but I mean,
No,
you
yeah,
know,
say that,
you
didn't
said, yeah." I said, if that's where we are, let's stay there because,
you said that to your colleague?
yeah,
Eh,
yeah. I'm like, because,
uh,
attacking a woman, an abuser of women is kind of like a trigger for me. And these are verbal assaults. And that is the precursor to the physical assault. So, uh, people calling her out of names, all right, jokey, jokey. Well, Trump can't stop. He's going to show the same aggressive behavior, but this time it's going to be in real time for the whole world to see. It's going to be so nasty, so negative. There's nothing inspirational about what he's saying or doing. Their convention was uninspirational. Just attack, 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 and you'll see it. They can't hide. It's in their pores. Even at the breakfast I went to this morning, where the ambassador from the from UAE was
mhm.
speaking with us, when he shared with them some facts and some truths about some things that are going on in the Gulf states. They started leaving one at a time, boop, 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 until pretty soon it was just Democrats in the room listening.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know how you do it, but you know what? I am so glad that you are there. I mean, really, because it gives me just to see God using you in this way has helped me a lot, and I know they never saw you coming. Because I mean, because you do speak to people across the aisle. You've developed relationships with people across the aisle. Why?
It's the only thing that I know. I mean, we deal with the paradox of having to go through worlds. I was in financial services for many years, oftentimes only black in the advanced finance class at Kellogg and Northwestern, and Board of Trade and high yield and distressed debt and junk bonds that were called high yield at the time.
Mhm.
I mean, so I'm used to being in there. And thank God for mom and dad having sent us to military boarding school when we were like 13 or 14 years of age.
Mhm.
So I've been in the all boys locker room and lived with all boys, and you know how those guys can react. And when you're the other, not just the minority, when you're the other, uh, and then if you got enough internal guts, you can take the heat, speak back, speak up, and feel comfortable in the room holding your truth.
Well, you know what, Joanna
And I
Boyd.
think it's a pleasure, a pleasure.
Oh, look, I love it. But I wanted to get this question in before you go. I'm so glad that you gave me some time this morning to my brother, my Congressman Johnny, who I love with all of my heart, and
Love
everybody's
you, Santita.
laughing about Sweet Biscuit Lee.
I
Don't
still
you
got
dare.
a, I still got a, I still got a birthday gift to give you. It's
Oh,
still
honey,
so good now.
no, you're my gift. You're my gift. Longtime push member Joanna Boyd said, "Look, like now your old sister got to put on her glasses before I have my cataract surgery next month. Oh my gosh, old folks' diseases. Quick question: what became of your efforts to bring charges against Governor Greg Abbott and his illegal transport of migrants across the country from Texas? It is inhumane," she said, "and he knows the consequences of the things that he's doing."
Yep. Let me see. I wish I had my. I could do a town hall. I just got a letter back from from the department that is overseeing that. So ironic you mentioned that because it's
Well,
been
why don't you
bothering
tell
me.
people what you did,
Okay.
with him?
Yeah.
For
Well, first of all, they've essentially assigned the blame to someone else. That you have to look at another agency because this has to deal with. Well, the original case is a letter to Department of Justice and to Health and Human Services addressing child smuggling that Greg Abbott is doing. You cannot transport uh, minors unaccompanied without an adult across state lines. So by him dropping off children in the middle of Chicago with no adults and having to go into schools and everything else, that's illegal. I've gotten one letter back, and it was from Health and Human Services, and they said that that has to be dealt with Homeland Security. So they're playing the bureaucracy. Don't want to touch it. That's something that I would hope that Vice President Harris would address, that she can address. That we have to enforce the laws. There's ways that we can deal with migrants and immigration humanely, but moving children across state lines unaccompanied is the portal, the gateway to prostitution. And so I want to make sure that that is like shut down immediately. The second thing I'd asked them to do was to impound the buses for being a conspirator for trafficking. And the third thing is to arrest the driver. Like everybody that made money in the food chain has to be held accountable. The children aren't walking here. They're being paid by the state and they're being shipped and transported by adults. Same thing that happened when you find people that have done this behavior. So they gave me the letter back, they punted it, and now I've got to refocus the letter back to Homeland Security, as well as I will copy Vice President Harris. Other thing I would tell you that we have to be concerned about is Governor Greg Abbott just announced, well, this is in Block Club Chicago, that 25,000 more migrants are coming up towards the Democratic Convention. They're using these people as a pawn. I'm going to also call Mayor Johnson today, share with him my thoughts on that. Use that plan, impound the bus, arrest the bus driver. If there's one child on that bus that's unaccompanied, and trust me, there are many children on those buses that are unaccompanied. you'll stop that behavior from Governor Abbott.
And do you think he should do it during the convention?
Every day they come in, you ought to lock up the bus driver and impound it. What are they waiting on? What do we have Chicago police for? What do we have Cook County police for? What do you have state police for? You just can't have somebody on the bus that starts in East St. Louis or Nexus or Southern Illinois and go 400 miles up into your state with children without an adult on it, and you know the date and time, or you know that they're coming and the mode of transportation. You stop it. We can deal with the border issue, but you don't use people as pawns.
Moving forward, you tell me what is the final thought that you want us to have? There's so much going on, Congressman Jonathan Jackson, 1st Congressional District of Illinois. It's just, you get whiplash, Congressman. You get whiplash because, like you said, over the past 2 weeks, 4 weeks, it's like the world has completely changed. Now even Donald Trump is saying, it's rumored, it's reported that he has buyer's remorse with JD Vance.
Oh, I'm sure. Oh, I'm sure. JD was not a natural pick for him. JD came with a price tag. Peter Thiel, who's been a major investor in Vance, was backing him. And it said that Elon Musk had committed to spend through the Republican Communications Committee $45 million a month for the next 3 months. So this was a favor of some Silicon Valley interests. And that's how Vance would Trump sell a seat on the ticket on the ticket? Yeah, who can raise me the most money? I mean, no surprise there. Yeah, I bet he does have buyer's remorse. The guy's taller than him. The guy's younger than him. You know, the guy's probably drawing a bigger crowd than him.
No, get out of here.
Hey, let me tell you this here, that the guy could be the age of his grandson that looks at the world different. The guy is making more headlines than him. Oh, yeah, he's really, really disliking this guy. Yeah.
Well, he's got that bandage on his ear. I'm not making fun of the fact that he was shot at everybody.
Yeah.
Shot at. That's not. There's nothing funny about that. That was an awful thing. And every time Trump will look up and not see his name on the headline or see Vance's name, it's going to bother him. Is he really?
He does not want, for certain. Yeah.
What is wrong with what's wrong with this guy? But you know what you said, P.T. Barnum. I'm gonna get a biography today. You know I'm gonna go do to Amazon because I'm gonna read about this man.
Let me tell you this. P.T. Barnum comes out of Connecticut and paid April Fool's Day and all this other stuff. But there was an older Black woman that used to travel in his circus, and I can't recall what they had named her. It wasn't her given name. And they would have her outside the little booth and have people come by. And he would tell people this was the, what's that a lady that gives birth to other babies? Midwives?
Midwives, that's right.
Yeah. That this was the midwife for George Washington. Okay, and that she was 160 years old or something. Okay, he just made up things to exploit people.
Oh yeah.
Just like, I mean that's just how low life a character P.T. Barnum is. Like it's and I would even, Trump doesn't hide who he is, so. And I just can't understand why people would follow him. Like, where's the leadership? He's retreating off the world stage. Vance takes the headlines the other day saying he could care less what happens in Ukraine and we'll pull out. Oh, I know that infuriated Trump. I know that you can't be the vice president and speak above the boss. He's got someone's got an ego to match his. Huh?
Come on, he's a friend of the Sons, Congressman. They said Donald Jr. talked this guy onto the ticket.
Yeah. Well,
Would you say
it's
too
going to
bad?
be the best. It's going to be the best 100 days that you've ever seen. It's unbelievable.
Oh, well, you know what? I want you to know you helped to clear your sister's sinuses this morning.
Yeah.
I have laughed a while.
Get out there, vote. Encourage people to get out and vote. They've got to, but don't. You're going to believe 10% of what you see, and it's going to be nasty. And they're not going to be able to hide their nastiness, and people are going to realize we don't want to be that mean and nasty.
Well, you know what? I hope that's the case because some of the things that I'm hearing are just it's just they're painful things to hear. But the upside of this is, it's always darkest before the dawn. I think when we get on the other side of this, there is healing. We're already a different people. I mean, I know you've seen that over the past few days, past few weeks, a couple of weeks and days, even up on the Hill. Who would have thought that we'd be talking about Israeli security and Palestinian justice as our father did more than almost 50 years ago, right?
Unbelievable. Hey, Santita, I got people waiting. Love you, girl.
No,
I'll
but
be back soon.
I love you. My brother, Congressman Jonathan Jackson. I love you,
My
John.
sister, the incomparable. Love you, girl.
I love you. Bye-bye. I love you all, everybody. And I just love my brother to pieces, as you can tell. Chaparral, are you gone, Chaparral? Well, everybody, look, and on behalf of Chaparral the Pearl and we are out of here. I would not be able to do this show every day without her. She and Marnie Terrain have always pushed me to expand the show and to do more and make sure you talk to this person, that person. But it's also, you can't do any of this by yourself. And what Chaparral does is she'll bounce I can bounce ideas off of her. Do you think I should go in this direction? She'll say, no, you need to talk to so-and-so. When I talked to Reginald Geis, the incarcerated gentleman yesterday, that was because of Chaparral, because she reacquainted me with Cassandra Greer and so many wonderful people. But she's been a beloved sister friend. And I just thank God for her. And she gets us up on StreamYard every day. She saw I was struggling, so she she took time out today because she knew I was like, oh, what have I done? But I want to thank you, and I want to thank you all for being part of my family. How about that? And now you got a chance to see the Jacksons at our what did he say, at our living room table, because he and I do this all the time. As you can see, I love my brother to pieces. I do. I have so much fun with him, and it's a blessing to have a sibling who really is a sibling of your spirit. In the most challenging times in my life, my brother has been there for me, and I hope he can say the same of me. He's just a joy to behold, and he's a joy to have as my brother. He's a joy. He's a joy, and God bless you all, everybody. Alan from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Everybody, like and share the show, and tell everybody to come to the Santita Jackson show YouTube channel, because you can see the whole thing. I think by the time Chaparral edits this, we'll have half the show will really be Congressman Jackson, and the rest will be just some of everybody else. But we were grateful to get him. He said he was going to call in, and once he was done with that, he surely did. We got a chance to talk with him and get some insights. Got some insights into the campaign. But you know what I say, Chaparral? Impossible. I love you. I love you, D-Ray. I love you, Dave Dowling. I love you, Miss Wanda. I love you, Alan. I love you, Tunzu. And I love you, Carol Soskin, my sister from another mister out there in the hills of Beverly. Regina, giving much love to Congressman Jackson. Absolutely. Hannah from South Carolina. Girl, absolutely. I love all of you so much. And I'll see you tomorrow on the Santita Jackson Show. Love y'all. Have a good one.